Hi guys, Kaycee with the Hobbs Crew here today, and we are talking about homeschool schedules. So we have 7 children, and they vary from ages 3 to 16. And so there's obviously different amounts of school. Our 3-year-old is just hitting preschool age, and so she learns with us just in our group time a lot. But from there, I've got kindergarten to 10th grade. So I have pretty much a child in every level of schooling. So I kind of wanted just to talk about how we do our homeschool schedule every week. I think everybody has this perception that homeschoolers tend to sit for 8 hours a day, and that is not the case. So, we have a lifestyle of learning, so we are always learning, and if we see a teachable moment, we are taking advantage of that teachable moment, but we also do have dedicated hours for schooling. Now, it is, we live in Missouri, so obviously whatever state that you're doing it in the U.S., you have to make sure you're compliant with your state laws, whatever that is. If you don't know what that is, HSLDA has their website they do a great job of communicating that. And so that is something I'm not really going to touch base on interpreting the law, but I just make sure that I stay within Missouri law. So our homeschool schedule for our family. Okay, so what do we teach? Now, this varies. I went with what I'm currently doing because as we see different needs arise, then we change. And so we do a year-round schedule. So one of the reasons that I do a year-round is because it's very important with 7 kids that we learn or stay structured most of the year. So if they have a goal or a way to be able to get rid of some focused energy, it makes our lives a lot easier. Plus, we can kind of take time off as we need to and at different times of the year. So instead of having a summer vacation or 3 months off, I choose to take it off throughout the year. And one of the ways that I do that is I do a 3 to 4 week schedule every week. So we depending on what our week looks like, we might have a 4-day week, and that just works for us. So what we teach are math, grammar, language arts, and language arts is reading, spelling, parts of speech. I think writing's on here separately. Handwriting is something that is a part of probably language arts, but that's a separate curriculum too that I use. Writing, history, science, Latin. They are doing some Latin. We have one kiddo who is fascinated with foreign language, and so I thought I started that this past year, and he really loves it. So that's one of the things that they're doing. Bible and character, PE, of course, reading, individual reading, and then art. So those are the kind of things that hit our schedule every single week. Okay, so basically our school hours are divided into 2 categories. One is independent work, okay? So obviously my kindergartner does not have a lot of independent work. So either one, she's working with a buddy. So our 10-year-old can be one of her buddies. Also, mom is a buddy. So there's a lot of independent work that happens with me. But once they hit about 3rd grade, then they can start to do a lot more on their own. So I like to do kindergarten through 2nd grade as lay a good foundation with a lot of work with me or an older sibling, and we work together on a lot of things. Now, whenever I am doing independent work with her, that doesn't mean that I am just focused on her. So I might be having her build, let's say she needs to build the number 83 with her math blocks. So she's building the number 83, and I'm working with another child at that point. So it isn't that I'm just paying completely attention to her. So it's just her independent work probably is going to only last about 5 minutes. And then it's going to be required for me to do something. Then there's group work. Okay, so the group work is stuff that we are going to be doing as a family. So there's certain subjects that I do as a family versus independent work. So it depends on what it is that we're going to do. So independent work is math, grammar, language arts, handwriting, Latin, and reading. Now, math and Latin both have DVD, they're DVD driven, so they're being taught on a DVD, which is extremely helpful. But that's not to say that I don't have to oversee it or to tutor or to answer any questions. So Rick generally handles all the math part of it. So the kids have a math clinic with him once or twice a week in which he goes over their work with them and checks everything, makes sure that they're on the right track. Depending on how hard it is for them, right now they're in the beginnings of division, so they're just flying through it. They don't have any problems at all, so they don't really need he's going to check their work once a week because they're just fine right now. But as they get into longer division, he's going to be having to be available probably 2 to 3 times a week just to make sure everything's okay. So independent work generally is them working on, they have what we call a list of assignments, and then they're given a due date, and they need to have those assignments done by them. Now, I check their work a couple of times a week just because I don't want them to work on something and it be all wrong. And then it's due and they don't have it done. So I kind of just look through it and make sure that because usually if they're making a mistake, it's the same mistake over and over again. So we can figure out what's going on and how do we change that. So that's something that I do. So their independent work, there's tutoring available. And then while they're working on their independent work, then I'm working with Georgie and Nikki to lay that good foundation that will propel them into independent work further down the road. The group work is actually what I call teaching time for me. Okay, so group work is writing, history, science, Bible and character, PE, and art. Now, I shouldn't say it's just teaching time for me because actually Sam, my 16-year-old, handles PE and art because those are 2 of his things that he likes to do. And so he teaches that stuff for me. But the rest of it I kind of handle myself, and that is when I'm working with all of them. Georgie, our 3-year-old, attends some of the time, but I don't push it a lot. She gets involved enough. Oh, I mentioned we do year-round, 3 to 4 days per week, just depending on our schedule. And that works really well. Okay, so I think I went back too far or did the wrong thing here. Okay, so 3 days per week, our morning school hours are 9:30 to 1. Okay, so school starts at 9:30 and it ends approximately 1 o'clock because lunch is at 1. From a 9:30 to 11, we do independent work and individual tutoring. And I kind of talked about this where it's a time when I am available for whatever they need help with. And they can bring their work to me and I'll check it or go over it with them or tutor them, help them understand something, that sort of thing. I'm working with Nikki, our kindergarten at this point, teaching her to read, teaching her to count, and all her math stuff and all that good stuff. Now, I do this, everybody works in our community area, so we actually have 2 kitchen tables. And so I'm usually at one with Nikki, and then the children kind of float in, and I'll help them as they need. Sam tends to like to go into our office or into his room and work on his stuff, which is fine. But he also is worked into this time frame for being for one-on-one tutoring, just because I want to make sure I'm available for him as well. Once 11 o'clock rolls on, 11 to 11:30 is Bible and character development. So, adjust this a little bit here so you can see that. Okay, so we do BSF, which is Bible Study Fellowship, and that's like a family Bible study. And then we do meet once a week to discuss that, and that runs through the traditional school year. So when I don't have it, I usually plan some sort of Bible study or character development. I love to teach the meanings and like how to be kind, how to show integrity, like what does that look like? I love to teach that kind of stuff. And so usually through the summertime, that's what we're focusing on, is actual character traits, learning what they are and how they look in everyday life. Then from 11:30 to 1, we teach on unit studies, and I teach history and science. We have kind of a co-op for science right now. We're learning the human body. So I don't have to teach a lot of science right now because Sam has his own that he's doing through a kind of a co-op thing too. So, but there's a lot of history and science that can go hand in hand. So if I see the opportunity, I will incorporate all that. So history and science, unit study, and then I incorporate my writing into my unit study, and I incorporate art into my unit study. Now, Sam does do his own set of art, so if I don't get it, it's not like, oh, the end of the world. But art projects are great for hands-on activities for kids. So they really enjoy that. So if I can do a history art project, then I'm going to do that. Okay, so 3 days a week we have afternoon school hours, and those are about 2 hours. Now, that is, this is not time that I'm necessarily available. So I make myself available in the mornings on those certain times, and they know they can get help from me then. I've never had a chance, or never had enough time, not enough time for a child when I've done it this way. So if for some reason I would, then I would definitely make myself available to them at another time. But having the structured time when I'm available and then having independent time for them kind of frees me up to do other things in the afternoon, which is kind of important for me. So in the afternoon, we do a 2-hour, generally have about 2 hours of school time, okay? So this looks like this. They do a household project. Okay, so we do like a kitchen prep day. It's something that needs to be done around the house. Now, kitchen prep is something where they're cutting up vegetables or they're preparing our week's meals so we have healthy options available. And that's the part of the project that they do. Or they might have to clean their rooms out, or they might have to clean the garage, or when it's mowing time, that sort of thing. Now, it's more of like life skills that we're looking at during this time. This is something that whenever they're going to be a productive adult, that this is something that they're going to need to know how to do. It could be prepping for dinner, whatever it requires. It could be baking something for something that we need to, an occasion that we're going to go to. It could be getting ready for that occasion and somehow, because if there's some sort of party that we're going to, or some sort of, like for example, the Valentine's party a couple of months ago, they needed to make Valentine mailboxes. So they would, whatever needs to be done, they're going to do it that day, that time of the day. And I cannot run this thing today, guys. Okay, then there's 30 minutes of independent reading. Whenever we go to the library, I do ask that they check out a chapter book. And so this helps during that time they're going to independently read something. And so I like to have a habit of this, and I like them to get used to reading a chapter book. And so this is really helpful. Plus, it's I actually schedule it to where it follows quiet time. So they'll have an hour and 15 minutes of quiet time, and that's when they're totally quiet. Yeah, I know, but it doesn't really work that way, but I like to think it does. And then I tack on 30 minutes. So I kind of have a space of an hour and 45 minutes between quiet time and reading, that the house is fairly quiet for me to be able to get whatever I need done. In fact, I'm recording these videos on quiet time, and I've had to pause it a couple times because my 3-year-old didn't get the memo that it was quiet time. All right, then 30 minutes of PE. So it's like exercise, pretty much. This could be a lot of times if the weather's nice, it's outside play. And so they go outside for 30 minutes and run around. Sammy a lot of times will do a game of basketball or a game of tag or something like that. He likes to kind of organize that. But at least, usually it's more because if I can get them outside playing, I do. But at least 30 minutes of outside play time and of PE. So in the wintertime, we have a couple of treadmills downstairs, so they'll walk those treadmills at a lower speed. Also, they'll bounce on a trampoline that we have in here. We have 2 of them. And so, we've done like We Dance, just anything to get a little bit of the energy burned off as much as we possibly can. Because otherwise it's just insane. Plus they sleep better if they've, done their thing. So then the 4th day, I don't plan to be teaching on that day. So they'll do, and then this is kind of like if we're having a friend over in the afternoon or something like that, or we have, this is a good, like Wednesday because we generally visit the library on a Wednesday and then we have church that night. So I find that for me, Wednesdays are kind of tough days just because by Wednesday I'm ready for a little bit of a breather. And so I've just kind of noticed that about myself. So I've decided to kind of make Wednesdays a little bit more of where I don't have to be on. Now, for Nikki, my kindergartner, I will still generally have to work with her some. So there is a little bit of teaching there. But I do have a buddy system that my 10-year-old can do. Also, I have a couple of apps on my iPad that she works through, and she can use those on that day as well. So she's still getting what she needs without me having to be right there. So independent work is about 1.5 hours. This is where they're going to work on their stuff. Now, if they have questions or something that I can answer quickly, absolutely. But if they're going to need a lot of work, then we're going to push it to the next time. They're going to work on something else instead. There's plenty of things the options they have to work on. If by chance they have all their independent work done, then they're going to be either one, then they're the next candidate to help Nikki, and they'll play a game with her or something like that, and help a sibling of some kind, or they will read their book. Okay, so if they have worked their work and it's all done and ready to go, and if it truly is ready to go, I always encourage them to double check it because they like to think it's ready to go and it's really not. So if everything is ready to go, then they can do those 2 things. They still have to be, it's not free time. They still need to be doing something that they are learning, or in this case, teaching too. PE, again, they're still going to be wearing themselves out for 30 minutes, at least minimum. Reading's going to be 30 minutes, and then usually a smaller household project that day. So I have kind of outlined all the household projects out to where that we have about 1 a day, 5 days a week. So that's kind of how it works. So, and then 1 day a week, we do have a homeschool co-op, and it runs about 6 months out of the year. If we don't have homeschool co-op, then we might be looking at a field trip or a park day or something like that we can go to, and that we can experience something just to get out of the house and do something different. So that's kind of how it is. Saturday and Sunday, we generally have off. We don't generally school on Saturdays and Sundays. I guess if they had some homework that they didn't get done and it was due, they would work on that. But other than that, those are pretty much free days. So that is kind of how it works. Now, Sam, my high schooler, obviously has more work. And so in those afternoon hours, he's actually working on part of his high school work. So he works an additional 2 to 3 hours per day in the afternoon in order to get everything done that he needs to get done. And there's certain, like he has parts science that he needs to make sure he's ready to go for and things like that. And so he works on that. Plus, he does some of his elective stuff in the afternoon as well. He does some digital artwork for us and that kind of thing. And so that part he does in the afternoon too. So that's kind of how it looks for our family for a large family homeschool schedule. That's how our week breaks down. Every week is obviously customized to whatever that schedule holds. But those are my goals. And then on my to-do list, I do put on there like what I want to accomplish that particular week for the kids. So there's like all this stuff is on my to-do list every week so I can make sure that I hit everything I need to hit. I want it to be well-rounded and where they can learn. But it doesn't need to be 8 hours a day because you are doing a lot more concentrated work and you're able to be focused on your work and to get it done. And so there's a lot of intentional learning going on. So that's why I talk about like the lifestyle of learning. Whenever you see an opportunity, like take it. So if they're learning about fractions, then they're baking cookies or whatever. So that we just look for those moments and we just say, hey, you remember that? And we just talked about this in your math or in your language. We just went over this and see how that works. So that is how it works. So I hope this helps. I hope it gives a little bit of guidance. It's what works for us. And every family has to you have your own set of obligations. You have your own set of to-dos. And so you have to make your own schedule work for you, whatever that looks like and however that looks. So this just gives you some ideas of what it looks like for me right now. And as the kids change their ages and sometimes they go through periods where they are more demanding and need more of your individual attention. And so I have to adjust that every week and allow for that. Also, you learn this does help us stay focused. And so and make sure everybody gets their needs met. So that is part of it too. And if you look at my schedule from last year, it's going to look really different compared to this year. Because as they get older, the needs change, your obligations change, your lifestyle changes, whatever it is changes, and you realize that you have to adapt. So anyways, I hope this helps, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.